Yes. So
you are so permitted. I said you have moved closer to the head of the class. Eh?
Yeah, one person was in front of the class. I was still dancing, Mr. President. That's the newest dancehall hit. That is out.
Let's go.
So, President, let me get my gadgets, my gadgets out. Mr. President, let me first start by asking my good friend and Minister, Senator Hill, to review some of the statements that he has made. The fiscal policy paper indicates that revenue and grants in total was $897 billion, suggesting that there is still a shortfall within the $1 trillion budget that exists. So I would recommend that we review where tax revenues $824 billion, non-tax revenue $65 billion, bauxite levy $1.2 billion, capital revenue $168.3, and grants $6.5 billion. So in total, that's $897 billion. There needs therefore to be found another approximately $120 billion to balance this budget. So, sorry, was the revenue figure? All right, but I mean, outside we will have a conversation. And yes, outside we'll have a conversation. I also must congratulate the minister because the Bureau of Standards, as I said to you directly and I'm saying publicly, is doing an excellent job facilitating businesses, and the speed in which they are responding is of great encouragement to persons who normally are worried about the Bureau's visit. I must congratulate them, and I congratulate you for your role of being in charge of them. I ask you to pass that on to the Bureau on behalf of businesses. Now, now, Mr. President, I stand this morning, this afternoon, with the intent, I stand this afternoon to expose the intent of this Jamaica Labour Party government to give the indication that their way is the only way, buttressed by some media practitioners who throw around willy-nilly the term fiscal discipline or fiscal indiscipline without truly processing what that means. The aim of this presentation, therefore, is to mash down the lie that any counter-proposal is a base of fiscal indiscipline. Indeed, the budget debate is where the government presents to the nation how they intend on getting maximum benefits out of the limited resources. And so, therefore, there can always be conversations around the resources that are present and the benefits that are expected based on the policies, the programs, and the fundamental principles upon which the government proposed. We, I believe, are not getting maximum benefits from the available funds, and no deviation from fiscal discipline as a conversation context as the context within this conversation is going to be positive. So all the ratios that are present are accepted to be standard, and by extension, we also remind the Parliament and the public that these ratios were established under the People's National Party when we did the IMF negotiation, an issue for which I will come back. So to set this platform, I will then go through some of the numbers, as did Senator Arbin Hill go through some of the numbers. So the total budget is $1,012 billion. So it's really 1.012 trillion, but so as to not confuse these numbers with 1 trillion and then 100 billion, I will stay at the billion. So it's $1,012 billion. Well, well, all right. Let me tell you what I'm confused by. Because the $1 trillion budget is the cost of the services that the government is about to send. It's no different than when I go downtown for a shoes and the man want me to celebrate that the shoes is now more expensive than it was before. I don't understand why we're celebrating the fact that you're now $1 trillion. You're spending $1 trillion for which you have claimed the majority I have to pay. So normally when I go to a restaurant and he says the food has increased, I don't happy about that. So I don't know what the 1 trillion is about. Yeah, it's coming out of my pocket. So the cost of goods, Matthew looked confused. But okay, we'll come back. All right, so we'll go back again. Because a lot of the public is also celebrating this new shoes pricing. So we have to now make it clear. What it means. The government is about to spend on the services the public is about to receive $1 trillion. The public, in turn, must pay in the form of taxes that $1 trillion. Whether it is by some debt, which eventually must be paid, so it's delayed payment, or it is by current payment, which is just current taxes. Fine, we will get to that. We'll get to that. So since the public will have to pay for these services that the government facilitates, then this $1 trillion is a cost to the public, and the public therefore should not be overly celebratory, in my opinion, but I understand that you must celebrate something. So the budget is $1,012 billion, and this budget is divided between debt, wages, and other programs. So, Mr. President, you're going to have debt, wages, and other programs. It's very important for us to acknowledge this structure of importance, because the first importance within the budget, that is even within our Constitution, my good Senator, is the debt. So the first duty is to ensure that that which we owe is paid under the debt aspect. So the first priority is the debt. The second priority is the wages that we are supposed to pay for the persons who carry out the efforts that the delivery of the service can be done. So that the teachers, for example, so that education can be delivered. Or the doctors and nurses, so that health can be delivered. It is this second structure that we have to remember later down, because when the Minister of Finance was saying we would have to sacrifice capital budget, which is really in the programs, so as to pay the teacher, it suggests that he had inverse the structure of importance, because the capital budget should be after understanding how much you have left having paid your wages, and reasonable and livable wages. The other thing, so we have the debt, the wages, the programs. Within this current $1 trillion budget is the debt, $280 billion will be paid. So this $280 billion includes the interest portion, $155 billion, and the pay down of debt, $125 billion. Now, again, you have to understand, the debt have a cost to it. And so therefore, the cost of the debt, what you call the interest rate, the interest rate is a price of borrowing. So the cost of the cost of the debt is going to be $155 billion. And in an effort to remove or reduce the debt, you're going to pay down some of the actual principal of the debt. So we're coming there. So therefore, you have that portion. The wages is $367 billion, and that includes some of the government's duties like the pension and stuff like that. And then we have the programs, which is another $365 billion, and that is divided into the capital, 75, and the recurring, 290. Now, this is very important for us to understand, because the $367 65 is really what is discretionary. That is the only portion that different governments really have a say about how they're going to do or what they're going to do. That's the only portion that would be different under anybody at all. So when I say Nigel Clark, oh, we're paying the debt, everybody would have had to pay the debt. In fact, Nigel Clark has taken on what Peter Phillips also used to said, oh, we're paying the debt, because that is within the Constitution, a necessity that has to be paid. And it was signed by the People's National Party under IMF. I'll get to that soon, so don't be too hasteful. Now, then you have the capital, the 75, the recurring, right? So that is the discretionary. Now, maintaining the government figures means that this conversation has nothing to do, as I said, with the current fiscal targets. We're really focusing on the 365 and how it should be used. Now, the other thing I want us to also understand is when they say, oh, like for example, education get the most. A lot of time is like in tennis, you have unforced errors. So what you want to really understand is what portion have they chosen to put to education, because they also in that big number include all the teachers that they have to pay. So if you have all the teachers that you have to pay, that portion of education would automatically be done by anybody who is in government. So and the fact that they're underpaid, right, would mean that an increase in their salary, which will only increase motivation and not infrastructure and all the other things, can also meet a big jump in education. So what we're saying, Senator Leslie, is that we really should be focusing on the amount from what government have discretion over. Yes. And how I would spend it on this side and how you have chosen to spend it on that side. That's the only debate. So when I say give 10 million to the puppy, it don't mean that I'm being fiscally indisciplined. It might really mean that I'm saying transfer it from the post. That is what we are discussing at this particular point in time. So, sorry? We will. We don't mean the 2-foot ones that have been taking the 4-foot ones that compete as a pet. Now my eyesight is failing me, so I'm going to also be. So young, eh? Yeah. I'm only young in the context of politics because the others are much older. You understand? I see people still saying I am over the hill now. But let us look at what will happen now. So the revenue portion, as I said, revenue and grants 897, of which taxes is 824. All in line with what Senator Hill says. But now I want to take a look at the whole shout about the no new taxes, because in no way it means no more taxes. So no new taxes may mean no new tax category or no new tax rate, but it doesn't mean no more taxes. And be careful. I've seen many upsets in sports. We don't expect one next week when Kingston College walk away with a victory, but I've seen many upsets. So therefore, what we have before us in the last 5 years, as per the fiscal paper, is that there has been in the amalgamation, in the total, a collection of more taxes. Right? So therefore, in this collection of more taxes, other than in 2020, when clearly there was a lack of economic activity, there was a total sum of 579 billion in 2019, 505 billion in 2020, 616 billion in 2021, 776 billion in 2022, and now projected 824 billion in 2023. Now, Minister Clark, in his explanation, I'm pressing 1. In his explanation showed that tax revenue, he suggests, is equal to tax rate times level of prices times number of transactions. And that is a fact. So the tax revenue is dependent on the rate, the level of prices, and the number or the quantity of transactions. So in this case, mathematically speaking, he's saying revenue can increase as long as one or a combination of the three, and the three that we're talking about here is rate, level of prices, and number of transactions. So the only way that the total can increase is if one or two or all three or a combination of those increase greater than the reduction in one or a combination of the other three. So that is what the minister goes on. But the people are not concerned, Senator Bunting, about tax revenues. The people are concerned about tax paid. So the essence of it is the tax impact, because the tax paid is what is the tax impact. How much more am I paying? Now, the same calculation is actually true, but at a different level. In this case, Senator Grant, is at the micro level, the person, and not at the macro level, the total, the government. Now, the government rightly is in glee whenever there is a higher tax revenue. I mean, they have more to spend. But the person is not in glee if they have to pay more. So the leader of the opposition was suggesting that the tax paid was higher per person, and that was one of the contributors to the tax revenue being collected. So the tax paid is also equal, Senator Scott Motley, to the tax rate times the level of prices times the number of transactions. And I'm going to now do some of my own mathematics. So let us look at this now. In this case of salaries, the tax paid will increase if the tax rate remains the same, and that we haven't had a change in that tax rate. Your salary increase, however, and you have one work same way. So the number of transactions have not changed. So, no, you have to give me a chance. I said at the macro level. So, at the micro level. So at the micro level, you can't come to about 100,000 more people. At the micro level, person A is going to pay more taxes if the rate 25% remains the same, which it has. Yes. His salary increase, let's say person A is a teacher, which it has, and him still only have one work. Yes. So therefore, this person, as the teachers have identified, yes, that they're not as better off as the growth suggests, because this increase in the taxes that they must pay make them carry home pay be no more than 20,000 more than they used to get. So even though Minister Clark continues to speak to the gross, the person who is now being able to afford living can only afford living on the net. He's concerned at the micro. So at the micro, an increase in your salary would lead to an increase in tax paid. Correct. Correct.
New or otherwise.
Yeah, new or otherwise. Whether it's new tax or no new tax. So people have been paying more. Now, we're going to come down to where... All right. No. So, yes. Because sometimes, but I love Senator Hill. Because Senator Hill always set up my next point. He's always paid attention, and then he carries me straight into the next point. So he says they can spend more because they get more salary. But not all people get more salary. So I'm going to now use another bracket of taxes, the biggest one, GCT, and I'm going to use food. No, I can predict the students. So I'm going to use food. Now, the tax paid on food will increase if the tax rate decreases, but less than the increase in the price of food, and the number of transactions remain the same. So you eat the same amount of food, but you now have an increase in the price of food, right? But the rate has decreased. Senator Minister Clark continued to speak to decrease from 2020, by the way, but still. So I'm going to now do some calculations, because mathematics was not reserved for Minister Clark. So I'm going to do some calculation myself. Yeah, the algorithms were not reserved for Minister Clark. I'm going to use facts. So February 2022, let us say you spent $40,000 worth of taxable groceries untaxable groceries in 2022. Now, I make sure I put taxable groceries because I had to prepare for Senator Samuda, because he will say there is some food item that don't have taxes. So I'm saying this 40,000 is on food items that have taxes. Good? Good. The tax rate, Senator Bunting, is 15%. And the tax paid per month on this $40,000 therefore is $6,000. Total tax paid for the year would be $72,000.
The informative information presented in this video is motivational and is positively aimed at inspiring, educating and entertaining the viewers with the cutting edge of critical reasoning. If you enjoy the contents on the Black Radar YouTube channel, please consider subscribing to show your support.
This is Mutabaruka. We want to present to you a wholesome kind of level of consciousness right now. So subscribe and tell your friend them. This is Mutabaruka.